was a rumble in the jungle. Once I heard Dad was outside again counting birds, and Mama plugged in a nightlight, and I saw the queen of the world.
Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast with Liz and Natalie. This episode is part 2 of Kelly Stary's birth story. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go back to the episode before this and give it a listen. We'll start with a little recap of last week's episode. So enjoy.
We were really in our little tiny European apartment. If we can survive in this tiny apartment, let's plan on doing van life. 1 month before we moved, I found out I was pregnant. Looking back, there was nothing that could have prepared me for the birthing experience that I went through. 1 week before my scheduled induction, my mom fell. It left her paralyzed. I was just a ball of stress. Like, there was no way my birth with Stella was going to go smoothly. I was probably around like 8 or 9 centimeters. They kept checking me kept checking me. After, I think it was 3 hours of pushing, my doctor came in and was like, Kel, it's not happening. At some point during all of that, I had gotten an infection. All of a sudden, I'm in the bright white lights. I'm in the surgical room. And they were like, she's out. She's out. The whole time she's screaming bloody murder. And they set her on my chest and she just goes silent. I was going through convulsions and massive amounts of the shakes. And everybody was just saying, oh, that's hormonal. I called the ambulance. I just look back and my husband is just sitting in the doorway as I'm being wheeled out on a stretcher and put into an ambulance with our 4 or 5-day-old daughter in his arms. That was terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, to see him have to be like, do I do?
Yeah.
Like, me, I know I'm going to get help. But who's his help?
Yeah.
Where's his help?
Yeah.
And so at that point, you just go in like fight or flight mode, right? So like, I called my dad. I'm like, here's what's happening. My dad's freaking out. Like, my dad's he's like, okay, I'll meet you at the hospital. Like, I don't even know what he was doing, but he was like, I will meet you there. My sister was like trying to figure out what's going on, like meeting where do we go? Like, my poor husband's at home, just like feeling helpless, doesn't know, because I'm like, I don't want to take the car from you. You have the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get to the hospital and they start running all these tests and they're like, you have a huge infection. It was in my uterus. And so I guess whatever antibiotics they did when I was still there the first time, didn't work.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, we're just going to start you on until we can get more tests done. Let's just start you on generic, like general antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
And the ambulance, when they asked me, where do you want to go? I was like, well, let's just go back to the hospital that I gave birth from, because they obviously they'll have the most information on what's going on. And so we go back there and I'm in the ER and because I went in an ambulance, there was no wait time. When you come in an ambulance, like, you're in and you're given a room. And so, yeah. So, because that's what I was worried about too. I was like, if I just show up at the ER, like, because I had just been through this with my mom. A week and a half before that, my mom was just taken to the same ER in the same scenario, ambulance and all that stuff. So I literally just went through all of that. And so I knew if I take an ambulance, I'm in there. Uh-huh. And so they start just doing the generic tests and they're like, okay, well, we're admitting you. And I was like, yes, obviously. And so you'll be moved back up to postpartum and they'll take it from there. And so after probably a couple hours, like maybe 2 hours, not that long of a time, I was moved back up to postpartum and they were just continuing the general antibiotics. 2 days go by and I still have the infection.
Oh my God.
And not only is it still there, it has spread from my uterus to my C-section scar. So it's getting worse.
And they were still just doing the same antibiotic?
Yes. And so finally, this OB, who's not my OB, not a part of the practice, but just an OB at the hospital, comes in and is like, what is happening? Like, we need to get you somewhere. Like, you cannot just be here forever trying to like you are dangerously close to, I'm surprised I didn't get sepsis.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, you're dangerously close. We need to get you sorted. We do not have the resources in our department to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call Infectious Diseases, and they're going to come down, and you can stay in this room. You can stay a part of the postpartum wing, but we are no longer going to take care of you. You will get your own nurse. You will get IDs, resources. And that was the first time anybody took my blood, was when they finally got Infectious Diseases. Like a full blood, like mock-up. Like they took blood when I was down in the ER, but like did a full, ran all the tests, did all the scans, all the stuff. Yes.
You have.
Yes. And so I think they were just doing I think it was the CAT scans that they were like, but I'm also like, I'm trying to breastfeed. So this whole time, every 3 hours, I'm pumping. I'm pumping. That's 3 hours long.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to pump. That's,
oh my God.
So then I'm also like, I'm trying to tell people, I'm like, I'm breastfeeding. So like, I can't do certain things and blah, blah, blah. I need to be aware of that when it comes to the antibiotics and all all the things.
What were you doing with the milk? Did they have like a fridge?
Yes. So because I was in postpartum, they just took all of it. So I was just like stuck in like massive amounts of milk. But
Jacob doing Priscilla.
He was giving her formula.
Okay.
And so she was starting on formula when she was at home with him.
Thankfully, you had some at home when you
I
left.
know, right? Right. So I don't know. At that point, it was just so fight or flight for both of us. Like and again, it was another like retrospect, like looking back, I'm just so like he had such a bonding experience with her. He had
trial by fire.
Yes. Talk about jumping into the deep end of the ocean, man. Like he just had for 5 days, because I was at the hospital for another 5 days.
Did he ever come up with you?
Yes. He was up there pretty much every day, I think.
That's good.
But we still had like our dog at home. And so like we weren't supposed to do this. They told us we couldn't do this, but we did it anyway. He would just like leave Stella with me, and I would take care of her at the hospital. And then he would leave and go do the dog stuff and like get groceries and buy more formula and buy more diapers and do all the stuff. And so funny because like when people always say like, just let me know if you need any help. That was like, I hated that sentence. But after this whole thing happened, because people kept telling me that, and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin.
I can't use my brain power to tell you.
Yeah, I'm like, you see what's happening, like you think of something, you figure it out. Like, like you could have done anything to help. And I just felt like other than my immediate family, like there were so many areas that were just like so dropped that I felt like, so like not only was I going through this traumatic experience with the birth, then this traumatic experience with the afterbirth, and then there was like this weird mental side of like, do I have no support at all around me? When I moved, I lost contact with a lot of my friends, and it's not their fault. It's not my fault. You just drift apart. It's a 7-hour time difference or something like that. Like it's hard to keep those connections and keep your friends. And, you know, like, of course I could have done a better job, and they could have done a better job. It's just natural. But like, to me, I was also experiencing this profound like realization of like, where's my community? Like, maybe it's not here either. I moved back to have this experience, but like, was that the right move? Like, would all of this have happened if I was there still? So it was like, it was very natural and like just seamlessly went into questioning everything and this depression and this like very, I always like to think that I have like, I'm very good at looking at the positive side of things and the bright that, and like even in this conversation, you know, like going through all of that, but like my husband had this incredible experience with my daughter, even though I was going through all of this, like I'm really good at finding the positives. And that was just a time where I just was like, I have to keep trying because it's really, really, really hard for me in this moment to try to find any positives. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this again. Just
makes sense.
like, you know, that sucked. What, like all these realizations and all of these trauma and experiences. And I'm like telling people this story and people are like, that's not normal. I'm like, really? Like, oh, that's, well, at least, you know, like, at least I know that other people aren't going through this. Like, always trying to find the positives. Like, oh, at least other people don't have to deal with this because that was really hard. That was really not fun. And then isn't it just in the same breath how hard and terrible and difficult all of that was? This postpartum amnesia comes and you just forgot all of that happened. You just forget everything. And I'm so thankful that I decided, like, when I got back the second time from the hospital, the second round, when I got back, I found out I was allergic to penicillin because I broke out in hives when I got back the second time. That was just, you know, it was just another thing. But I wrote it all down and I'm so happy that I wrote it all down because that really, I was actually like reading it today before I came in because I was like, so many things happen and that amnesia just really like knocks it out of you. Like I read something that is like it's natural selection. Like it happens to all of us because if it didn't, we would stop having babies and the earth would not be populated.
No.
We would have disappeared as the human race if postpartum amnesia was not a thing. Because 6 months later, we were like, should we try it?
Oh, that's 6 months. Oh my God. I thought that you guys just like accidentally got pregnant.
Oh no, we did it on purpose.
Oh God.
And it is all a little bit related because as I told you, like I am my mom's only daughter, my only child. And when she was going through her surgery and her accident and all of those things, like that was really hard on me knowing that like I was her only child. I was the only one that could be there to help her. And I had always wanted a sibling really close in age. I had half siblings and I have step siblings, but like I wanted like a full-blooded sister or brother that was same age as me. I was always super jealous of the kids in school that had their siblings that were in school with them. Like I'm sure they were like, that's annoying. Like I hate that. But I was so jealous of that my whole life. I wanted that so badly. And then when my mom had her accident, I was like, I have to. I want a sibling for my kid and I want them to be close in age. And if I have to go through that again, it's worth it to know that not just one person will be in charge of everything that my husband and I, like, when we get, hopefully, when we get old and like, there's not just one child having to take care of us. Like, they can share that responsibility with, at least one other sibling.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was, I had her in May, and then in December we were like, okay, let's start trying. I guess. But we had never tried before. And so Stella was a beautiful, lovely, traumatic, happy accident. But we had never tried before. So, like, I wasn't, like, that birthing experience was birth control in itself for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I've always been very in tune with my body and aware of, like, what's going on with it. And I had always tracked my periods. And so I knew about when I was ovulating and all this stuff. And so we're like, okay, well, let's, like, starting in January, whenever we have our, your first ovulation, like, we'll try to get pregnant. And literally, like, I know this is going to sound insane, but I could feel it. It was like 3 days later, I started cramping, maybe even 2 days later, like maybe in 24 hours. It was like so soon after that I was like, there's no way. But I was feeling myself coming, like, I was cramping. There was no other reason for that because I wasn't ovulating anymore. And I was, like, cramping, and my, like, had weird mucus changes, and then, like, started getting really hormonal a week later. And then literally 2 weeks later, it was the day that I was supposed to start my period. That morning, I was like, let's just take a test because, like, I think that I could be, with all the things that I've just felt in the last, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's very possible.
How did you not take one sooner? I don't know.
Well, I think I might have, and it came, like, right when I was cramping, and I think it came back negative because it was, like, obviously it was too early. So I was like, okay, now I will just do the test. And I mean, like, so I went to Walgreens. We were, like, on our way to a friend's house to, like, celebrate the new year being over. I hadn't seen him in a while, so we were driving out there. And so I was like, let's just stop at Walgreens because, like, I'm gonna drink a lot if this comes back negative. And not out of, like, sad, because, like, people have such a hard time getting pregnant that this is our first time trying. I was like, there's no way it's gonna happen so quickly. Well, it did. It came back immediately. And I, it's funny because I, like, the tests are just the little strips in Prague and Europe. They were just the strips. So I, like, peed in a cup and then just, like, set it in. And that time was actually hilarious because I went through a whole weekend with my husband's parents realizing that I was pregnant because I hadn't had my period in, like, a week. And it didn't even occur to me because that was just so out of the realm of, like, any possibility in my life at that point in time. And then it like dawned on me that I was a week late, and I was very regular. And so I went through an entire weekend with my husband's parents knowing that I was, like, something was off, and they drink a lot. And so I kept having to, like, be like, no, I don't want a shot. Like, no, I don't want that glass of wine. And his mom was like, are you okay? What's wrong? And I was like, oh, I just, like, I've been feeling kind of sick this weekend. And, like, I'm trying to take a week off. Like, I'm trying to be, like, stop drinking so much, like, I'm an alcoholic. No, I was trying to come up with any excuse in the book. But, like, if you're a woman who drinks pretty regularly and all of a sudden you're like, no, thanks, everybody's good. The first thing people are going to think of, like, oh, are you pregnant? Like,
that's how I told my mother-in-law.
Yeah. So, like, and of course I told my husband while we're going to his parents' house. And then like we were spending the weekend with them. And so he's like, no, you're not. No, like total denial. He's like, that's not possible. Like, it's not happening. And then I was like, okay, if I still haven't started my period by Monday, let's go take the test. And so we buy the test. I peed in the cup. I stick the thing in, and he's like reading the directions, and he's like, okay, it says to wait 5 minutes. And I looked at the test. I said, babe, we don't have to wait 5 seconds. It came back immediately.
Oh, yeah.
bright double line. It was like, baby, like, we are pregnant. And we were like, oh, well, okay. And that was like a month before we were planning to move back to the city. So we were like, whoa, 180. Gotta do all that. So this time I'm like, all right, second time, like, I guess maybe like it takes a while. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's like that time was such a wild experience. Like, I don't know what to expect this time. And so I like tried to, in Walgreens, I'm like trying to pee on this stick, and and I know it's gross, but it's the Golden Hour Birth podcast. Like, nobody's listening to this that doesn't want to know these details. I just peed everywhere. Like, it's all over my hand. It's all over the stick. And I'm like, oh no, what have I just done? So I'm like trying to clean it up. I'm like trying to clean my hands. I like set it on the little sink and let it just like sit, and while I'm like, cleaning the toilet seat and cleaning my hand, and I'm like, what is this? Why did I just do that? And then I went back over, and it says pregnant, but like I peed over the whole stick. So like in my head I'm like, maybe like the control is off, like maybe it's something weird, like maybe it's just error. So I like go out to the car, and I tell my husband what happened, and he was like, I don't think that's a thing. He was like, I don't think it just like messes up just because you peed all over the wrong parts. I'm like, well, yeah, there's like a control, and you have to do it right. So if you don't do it right and you just pee all over the whole stick, surely it's going to mess up. And he's like, okay, well, let's just, you have another test. I'm like, yeah, I have another test. So we go to my friend's house, and we're there, and we're just hanging out, and we're about to start drinking some wine. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just go to the bathroom really quick and like do it. And so I'm in there, and I wait the amount of time, and it comes back, and it says pregnant, and I'm just like flabbergasted, like cannot believe. And I was like, by golly, I did feel it. And I was like, I did. It is that. Wow. And then I like start to do the math, and I'm like, oh, Stella's still baby. Like, I'm like, she's like 8 months at this point. And I was like doing the math, and I was like, oh my God. What did we do? I'm like, that's a lot sooner than I thought it would be, but like, all right. Yes, so I like went out and told my friends, and they were like, yay, like so, and she had actually my friend had a baby like I think it's like 7 weeks after Stella, so we both had babies around the same age, so it had just happened. We had all just given birth. So she was like, I still have some non-alcoholic wine from pregnant 2 seconds ago. So do you want some? It was terrible. But I was like, yeah, might as well. And so then my husband was pumped because then he had a DD.
There you go.
That night. And, so it was just like absolutely crazy. And then, went from there. Oh, gosh. And then everything was Sam's birth was the exact opposite of Stella's. Everything was planned. Everything was scheduled. I was not doing a vaginal birth again because that was the whole reason why I got the infection, had the issues, had the trauma, all that stuff. I was like, not doing that again.
Yeah.
My doctor was really great the second time around, just being like, do you have any questions? No. Do you need anything from me? And I'm like, no, I did this 2 days ago. Come on. Like, we're on to the next one, like. And then we found the due date. We calculated his due date. Well, at the time we didn't know it was going to be a boy, but we did the due date. It was September 26th. Stella would have just turned 16 months, or like was just about to turn 16 months when on his due, like right after his due date. So a real quick turnaround. We weren't kidding when I was like, close in age, like they were going to be Irish twins. And the closer that we got to, like, I had mentally prepared myself, I think, but the closer we got to giving birth to my son, the more nervous I got for her, for my daughter, because I was like, she didn't choose this. How is she going to react? Like, did she get enough love? Did she get to be an only child for enough time? Did we get to spend all of our energy and all of our love and give it just to her, because she's going to have to share it after this point? And that really worried me. Like, I wasn't sure when does jealousy form in children, and when does, like, I don't know, just pain and sadness, and when do they become emotionally mature to be like, that stinks, like, I don't like that. And so I had all these really big emotions of like, well, I was very still scarred from obviously the first birth. Mm-hmm. And like, I didn't even realize the depression until this kind of the fog finally cleared, was when I stopped breastfeeding. I only made it 3 months with Stella, exclusively pumping. And by 3 months, I was like, absolutely, I can't do this anymore.
Only you made it.
Well, yeah, I made it. Yeah, I made it 3 months through all of that, exclusively pumping, and was darn proud of it. Mm-hmm. And so, right, I mean, it was like, I was told, I think because I'm also raising a 1-year-old, and I started my own like Instagram during that time. And so we were traveling a lot and doing all of these, really trying to soak in every moment with Stella that we could before we had this next baby. And so to me, that the first, I want to say 8 months flew. I mean, we went to Europe during that time. Yeah. I flew to Europe, and we were there for a month when I was 7 months pregnant. I know. It's like, it was huge. I know. But like, we just really, I like soaked up every moment. I was like, I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to try to just be involved. And it really made the pregnancy fly by. But then once I hit like 8.5 months, I only had like maybe 6 weeks left or something. I was like, okay, like now we should probably prepare for this next baby. Maybe I should like start thinking about what they need. And so then I was like, oh, I should maybe have like a baby shower and do like literally like 6 weeks before. This is the first time I had thought about any of this. And so we ended up having, I think, like a little diaper party that on Labor Day weekend, because it was the only weekend that we did it like at the park in one of the shelters, and the only, because everybody's out of town on Labor Day weekend. So of course it's available on Labor Day weekend. At the beginning of September, my due date was literally in like 3 weeks after that. And we still don't have a crib for Natalie. Natalie so kindly offered her crib to us before we started recording. We still don't have a crib for Sam, but he's in a bassinet in our room. So like, you know, I wasn't that worried about it, but like we really didn't think about it. And then yes, total second kid problems. And then when I did think about it, that was when all of those memories started coming back up. And it was like, oh gosh, like, and then the anxiety starts getting in, and I'm like, am I going to feel the way that I did after the last one? What if it doesn't go to plan? And my doctor was so reassuring. She's like, no, listen, we are doing it different. Like a scheduled C-section is completely different. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so I was like putting that faith in her, trust in her. Like, you know, like when I think about all the horrible things that happened before, it was all related to the vaginal birth. So the C-section was fine. And so if I just focus on that, then everything will be okay. And that's what I was like telling myself. So then like the anxiety of giving Stella a sibling, will she like him? Will she be okay with it? Like all of those thoughts start coming in, and you're like, wow, gosh, like this is a big thing and a big change. And like, am I ready for it? Are we ready for it? Is she ready for it? Because now like, she's so young, she can't tell me. I have to just kind of feel it out and see and kind of decide. And at that point, she also like, she was with me full time. Like I've been a stay-at-home mom since I gave birth to her. And she had a lot of separation. It's just that timing is like massive for separation anxiety at that point. So I'm worried about that. My aunt, shout out to Aunt Pat. She drove from Indianapolis to watch Stella while we were we planned on her driving in town and watching Stella for the 5 potential days, because I was like, I'm taking my time with this. Like I'm going to be there the full 5 days. I don't want to be rushed out of that hospital. After the last time, like we are going to make sure everything is good because I'm not coming back here. I'm not coming back here. And I'm going to attempt to breastfeed. I learned from the first time, you know, like I made sure I was like, nobody is giving my child a bottle. Nobody is giving my child like anything that I have not okayed. That child is going to be going skin to skin as soon as we can. I don't, you know, like if it's not immediate, fine. But like as soon as we can, we're going to get them attached and we're going to try to start breastfeeding as long as I can get my life together. And so like I had, you know, like you have your expectations from the first time and it went so horribly. And I'm a big believer that like negative experiences are learning experiences, and you can take that and you can dwell on it or you can learn from it. And so sure enough, like we like go in and everything's like scheduled. And so we go in early in the morning and I'm like, oh gosh, like I can't believe like it's finally here. Like, wow, this is really happening. Everything went to plan leading up to it. And then I just go in for the C-section and I have the C-section and then I came out of the C-section. And the only thing that was a little interesting that didn't go to plan was I had the same reaction to the spinal of the C-section this time as I did the first time. So apparently I just have like, my stepbrother's an anesthesiologist and he told me, you know, all the technicalities and all the real terms of like, oh, you're just sensitive to da 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 and da 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 da. But like, to me, my brain's like, right. I called lidocaine candy cane for like a solid 6 months. So, and so I, again, for 24 hours, after my C-section, was passing out, couldn't stay awake for more than 5 minutes, and was puking all day.
Yeah.
But this time, my nurses were, because I told them, I was like, breastfeeding, I really want to give it a good go this time. I really want to try. Every time I woke up or every time the baby cried, they put him on me, and they would just, even if I was asleep, they would. And thankfully, he was a phenomenal latcher, whether I was holding him or whether the nurses were holding him or I was passed out or what. We somehow managed to get him to have a pretty good latch. And he was just a thirsty boy. And so like he was just like determined to get milk no matter what. And I had good consultations with lactation consultants that time around. And my husband for 24 hours got to spend like all of his time just holding the baby. Didn't have to share him with me one bit because I was passed out for 24 hours. So he just got that bonding time and got to hold him and just got a totally different experience. And the experience that I wish I could have had that first time, but I think I only got it the second time because I had that experience the first time.
Yeah.
Like I had to go through all of that to have such a special experience the second time.
Yeah.
And then you looking back, you're like, oh, wow, that's even less normal than I thought it was. Like, because now I'm like able to get up and walk around after like a day.
Yeah.
And then like my pain isn't, I was like at 2s and 3s and like totally fine. And I was like starting to wean off of the medication after like 2-3 days and the normal things that you realize like, oh, this is how it should have been the first time. Like,
but you had nothing to compare it to.
But you had nothing to compare it to, so you just don't know.
Yeah.
And so brought home Sam, and Stella just loves him. They love each other, which is crazy to see. Like, because so now he's 3 months, and he smiles at her, and the way he looks at her, like he knows she's his big sister. And like she just like wants to tickle him all the time. And like, and it's in this really interesting like part of her development too, because she's now starting to like mimic the things that are happening around her. And she's starting to like develop speech and develop emotions, and toddlerhood is bananas. I mean, dramatic is like putting it kindly. But it's also so fun because she's a real person.
Yeah.
She's a real person. And she takes her baby dolls and she puts a burp cloth on her shoulder and she throws her baby dolls over her shoulder and burps her baby dolls. And the first time I saw that, I just like, you just lose it because you're like, she's watching me. She loves it. She's like practicing, and she like always wants to hold Sam, and she like wants to feed him, and she wants to just like be around him all the time. Every time. So like my husband gets up with Stella and does her morning routine with her since we started having Sam. And because obviously I'm up all night with Sam, which cool. But he does all that. And so I always come out in the morning before he goes to work and come out and I take the baby out. And every morning it's like clockwork. She's like eating breakfast in her high chair and she can hear my door open and she knows that it's both of us. And she just turns around in mid breakfast and just goes, "Hey." Hey, and just like greets him with such a big smile. And like, I don't think it's for me. Like, I really think she's greeting the baby.
Yeah.
Like,
Probably.
She might be happy to see me, but I'm pretty sure she's infinitely more happy to see him when we come out in the morning.
Right.
Right.
How old is she now?
So she's 19 months now. Yeah.
Fun age.
It is a fun age. Gosh, it's a dramatic age, but like it's fun. I mean, it really is fun. Like the rate in which she's just like absorbing everything is like fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And
We'll be
just
turning 2 on Thursday.
oh my gosh.
And her speech is just like exploded. And I'm like, it's so cute.
It's so cute.
So adorable.
I love it.
Yeah. I've done this movie and like take off this past like few months. And it's been really cute.
Well, for us, so
Fun age.
Stella, our kids are learning 2 languages
Oh yeah.
because my husband's native language is Czech.
Yeah.
And so he only speaks to our kids in Czech.
That's
so
really
fun.
It's so cool. I'm like, you guys are already so much cooler than I will ever be. Like, I love that
And
for
I
you.
thought you were pretty cool.
Yeah. Cute. Well, they're infinitely cooler.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're going to be native, well, I guess I don't think they're native, but fluent speakers in 2 different languages from like the get-go, the start. I just love that for them because seeing so much of the world and seeing how much the rest of the world can speak multiple languages and how, you know, like, and how much it is such a valuable tool to be able just to communicate with other people. And they will be able to do that.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Oh, they
could have done
yeah,
that to me.
right?
Yeah.
It's not their fault.
My mom could have spoken Serbian at home.
Oh, she did. Well, you know, to each their own decisions, you know. But like we knew because we knew we weren't going to be in the States forever.
Yeah.
So moving back, like it's just like, yeah, well, we're going to move back and they're going to want to probably be able to communicate.
Exactly.
And so like making sure, and it was hard at first, I think, for us to like navigate that and figure out like how are we going to do it, because my husband also really likes when I can understand, because I know very little Czech, like knock on me for sure, but like I should know more. But and I'm learning now that he's speaking to her, like I'm learning through that process, which I love. Like my Czech is better now than it was when I lived there. I know, it's insane.
How did you get by 4 years?
Well, I lived in Prague, which is the capital, and everybody speaks English. Okay. So, like, everybody speaks English. They'll tell you that they don't, and then they'll go into a full-blown conversation with you in English. So,
and they love practicing too.
They do love practicing, and like, I knew vocabulary words. So, like, I can like read a menu and tell you what the food that I want to eat on the menu, and then I can order it with the server. That's very important. Like, can I get a beer, please? Was really good at that.
Yeah.
I had a lot of practice with that. And like navigating the grocery store, it's the same kind of thing. It's the same words. Grocery stores and restaurants have the same words, you know, connected. Like, do you want some peppers and onions and chicken on a plate? Yes. And so, like, I could do that. I could do those things. It was like just the conversation part of it that was just so intimidating to me and like so impossible. And so now it's like really fun to practice like baby Czech and, you know, and we watch so many, like, we listen to songs and we listen to stories and we watch shows in Czech, and now Disney Plus has gone to the Czech Republic, so now a bunch of Disney movies and all the stuff that's on Disney Plus you can dub in Czech.
That's cute.
And so now we just like watch Frozen in Czech all the time, and I'm like, right? And so it's fascinating to me that they get to kind of have that experience, and so now, but with the speech thing, I'm like, you're gonna be talking behind my back. I know it. And like, and all of her words kind of come out in this weird like Chinglish like mess. And so I'm like, I can't wait until I can like actually understand what you're saying. But we'll get there eventually. I'm not worried about it because I'm like, 2 languages. It's got to be tough to like departmentalize. And of course, they're like so good at it at that age.
Yeah.
But but it still has to they have to make the connection. She has to eventually get to the point where she's like, okay, if I'm speaking to my mom, I speak in English. If I talk to my dad, I mean, that takes some time. So, but it's fascinating. It's so fascinating this age.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then little Sam. Babies are so easy. Babies are so, like, for me, babies are so easy. It's the toddler phase that I'm like, what is this?
Ditto.
This is new. Not. Ooh, let's, like, can we, like, slow it down a bit? Can we just sit for a second?
Right? No. I'm in so much pain. Like,
Oh,
I'm not really in pain. I'm just like, can I just like not be pregnant?
Yes. And you'll get there, and it'll be wonderful. Like, everybody was like, how are you feeling after I had Sam? I was like, great. I was like, I'm not chasing a toddler being pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
That and like getting on the floor with her and getting up off the floor with her. And like, I did this amazing thing where she has like a really big bedroom. She like takes what should be the master. I'm that person where I gave the master bedroom like to my child pretty much. It's not really, but essentially. And so she has like her room and her play space all in one area. And I put a mattress on the floor.
Love it.
And just laid there for like the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy. Like, that's just where I was. I just laid on that mattress in her room and was like, this is it. I have reached peak professional pregnancy with a toddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that, but Wes just like wants to bombard himself
Boys and girls are different.
on the mattress.
I think, yeah.
He like needs it like at an angle so he can like ram himself into the mattress.
Yeah. I think like little boys and little girls are different. I think boys are a little more rambunctious because Stella's pretty like, I mean, she's getting to that, but like she also still listens to me when I'm like, don't do that. She likes to climb, but I'm like, that if you fall backwards and you're going to hit your head and blah, blah, blah. And she like understands that. And she's like, okay, I need to be a little more cautious as I'm doing this climbing. Even though all the little boy toddlers that like I know are like, who cares? Like, crack my skull open.
Mine are like the opposite though. Arthur's so careful.
Ooh,
and,
maybe.
Like, and Vivian is just like full on.
Maybe it's
she's
also
gonna be like field hockey player.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where she came from.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
So funny.
Do it. I think that's also like a second child thing too.
Yes,
I think like
they are fearless.
yes, I've heard that.
Very true.
I've heard that. That's why I'm like, I have a daughter who's very cautious and very like rule follower, and she like likes things to be clean, and she like if she'll have a bowl of like bananas or something, and a banana will fall out of the bowl. She'll put it back into the bowl and then eat it out of the bowl. Like she can't eat it from the place that it doesn't belong. It has to be in its proper container, and then she can eat it. Like that is my child.
I wish I could show you what it looks like when Wes eats shredded cheese at our house. He like doesn't even close his mouth. He's just like, and then it just like boom. It's all over the floor.
Yeah, Stella's very dainty in the like. She's like, oh no, I'm gonna put it back in the bowl, and then like I'm kid you not. When I take her plate when she's all done, if she has like scraps on the tray, she will put them back in the plate. On the plate for me to take it away. I know. But there is no way I'm getting 2 of those. No way. And I think for every moment that she's like that, I know Sam is going to be like just as far on the other end of the spectrum. Like that is my lot in life. Although like they do, because they say like, oh, if you have one good baby, like your second one's going to be. Oh, and Stella, and so far, Sam has been just as good of a sleeper as Stella. Both of my kids, I think it's hereditary.
Yeah,
sleep is very important to me.
Yeah, you'll have a good sleeper.
Yeah. So and everybody keeps saying that. They're like, oh well, it's not gonna be that, and I'm like, no, sleep's important. We're gonna, and sure enough, like I think that so far he has taken after his big sister in that. And I am #thankful. Cannot stress that enough.
Yes. And
That's
so
good.
thank God you made your Instagram traveling with babies.
I know. It's like I was planning this. Like I was thinking that was like my announcement. It was like my Instagram is now we are now officially traveling with babies.
Yes.
So before I was just a fraud. And and truthfully, it was just because traveling with baby was already taken. Somebody already had that Instagram. So I was like, okay, traveling with babies. And then sure enough, and that was, oh my gosh, so I started my Instagram on January 1st, 2022. And so we're coming up on 1 year.
Oh my
Wow,
God. That's
TWB,
awesome.
yeah.
Yay.
I'm so excited. Thank you. So
I don't know much about your Instagram, so tell me about it.
yes. So obviously, like through our experiences, traveling has been like such a big deal. And I mentioned it earlier, like I always thought I was too selfish because I love to travel, to have children and to have babies. And because they always say like, oh, you need to settle down and you need to like, you can't do everything that you like to do when you have a kid. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm never having a kid. It's like, this is something I like to do and I'm not willing to give it up. And so I think also a part being in the hospital for almost 2 weeks and then getting out and being like, I've missed the first 2 weeks of my child's life. Like, let's go. Let's go somewhere. Let's do something. We were out everywhere. And Stella was so easy to take out. Like, to her credit, like, if we were dealing with like a colic baby or she wasn't sleeping or she wasn't, like, those make it infinitely harder to take your baby out.
Yeah.
And so to her credit, she wasn't. She was such an easy baby that slept everywhere we took her. And so we were like, well, then we can go out. We can do things. And we take her everywhere. We took her absolutely everywhere. So then we just started like doing the big traveling because we could. We started small. We did like little day trips and then we were like, okay, well, let's spend a weekend in Nashville and then let's go to Florida and then let's do New York for Christmas. And in the process of me doing the research, to find out what I needed to like logistically travel to New York with a 6-month-old, what was the public transportation? Like I've taken all kinds of public transportation, obviously with traveling but like, what does that look like when I have a stroller? Because Stella was very much a sleep in the crib in the dark with the sound machine. She was not like a sleep on me type of baby. She needed to have her environment. And I was like, okay, well, when we were in Florida, we can just go back up to the room and she can just sleep in the room. But in New York is huge.
Yeah.
I want to see New York. If I'm there, I don't want to be going back to I can do literally nothing in the span of like 2-3 hours time. So hopefully she's just going to be able to do it on the fly. But how do I do that? Like, what does that look like for us and for her? And I need to like figure out how to do this. And I've heard nightmares about the New York subway system. And so how are we going to get around? Like, how much are Ubers? Are they really expensive? Yes. The answer is yes. Very expensive.
And then a car seat.
Yeah.
You're like,
and then a car seat. Like, are we going to bring the car seat with us? Or like, we're not going to use it for the whole time. So like, what does that look like? Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
let me install this real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And so how are we going to do all this? So in that process of trying to navigate that, I was like, there are no resources. Like, I'm having a really hard time finding this information anywhere. And like, I can find like, okay, here's information about the New York subway system. Here's information about like, bringing your car seat through the airport. Here's this. But there was no place that it was just like all in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is 1.5 million blogs on the internet about what you should see when you go to XYZ, when you go to New York for Christmas.
Yep.
Here's all the things that you want to see while you're here. But like, what I want to know is how to do that. Like, how do I logistically go visit that thing? And then how do I do it with a baby? And then how do I do it with a stroller? How do I do that there? How do I do that here? And so I started blogging. I started writing it all down, and I created the Instagram because I love like those education-based Instagrams where I'm like listening to hours of Carrie Locker's story to just figure out like what one piece of information that I need to know. But I just sit there and I just learn and I absorb so much. And I actually really loved, that was like through all the videos and the reading of the books, like Instagram was where I felt like I was really absorbing the most about this new phase of life that I was going to enter, because it was just your bite-sized chunks of information. It wasn't overwhelming. It was easily digestible, and it was fun. And it was like social media, which is what I love, you know? And so I was like, well, I could do that. You know, like I have a background in writing travel content. I have a background in social media management. I have all the things that I can get in education and teaching, and I can just combine them all and maybe do it myself. And so I started it on January. It was like we like got back from New York for Christmas, like right before Christmas. And by January 1st, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. So I thought about it for like 2 weeks. I wrote a blog post for every day the first week. So like, I think there were 7 blog posts that first week, because I was like, well, I need to get some content out there. Yeah. And really like write about what I just kind of experienced and what are probably going to be the frequently asked things. And then from there, I released a new blog post every single week until I had Sam. So like, it was something like 30 something.
That's amazing.
Blog posts. From January until September. And now I've like slowed, obviously. I'm like, okay. I'm like still, leave. Yeah, it's my maternity leave. Yeah. Now I'm like raising 2 kids. So it's like, it's fun, but got other things. But I'm still, obviously, the Instagram has been growing like exponentially. And it's been so fun for me to have that creative outlet, because I needed it. I needed something to focus on for myself, because as a stay-at-home mom, like it's 24/7, the kids, the babies. There is absolutely no point during the day, of any week, of any month, that I get to like leave and go focus on something else unless I plan to do that. Like, and say like, I have to clear my brain of just babies all the time. And some people don't need that, but for me, I needed that. Yeah. And so that has kind of been my outlet and my creative outlet and my community that I've kind of built for myself in what I felt like was kind of losing my own here. I've created this new one. And that one's for me. And it's all with like-minded people, all that want to travel with their babies and experience new things. And I get to help them do that. And I feel like really honored that people like trust in me to do that and to help them and to kind of like take my advice and it work out for them. Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's really special. Thank you.
You guys are going to Mexico.
Yeah.
When are you going to Mexico?
We're taking our first family trip in April.
Ooh, we're going to Mexico at the end of January.
Yeah. I'm excited. But yeah, it's like
4 months. I was like, 4 months. That seems like enough time.
There's still baby. That's like easy.
Yes, that's it. That was my thought
toddler's gonna be-
exactly. I'm more worried about traveling right now. My focus is what are we doing with Stella? Way more than what are we doing with Sam?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, the logistics. I'm like, okay, if we get a shuttle, because I'm doing all inclusive.
Yes.
We went for my birthday
100%.
last year, and we didn't take the kids.
Yeah.
So I did like our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if we're going with the kids, we're doing all inclusive.
Yes.
We're doing a place with a kids club.
Mm-hmm.
And they have babysitters and nannies.
Yeah.
And like,
but
I'm like, okay, I'm bringing a car seat for Vivian, 100% for the airplane.
Yeah.
But then Arthur's going to be like 4.5. Oh, no, just 4.
Yeah.
And then, do you put the car seat in the shuttle? Like, there's like all these different things that I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
what do I do with these
shameless plug. I have these new consultations. I'll let you have a consultation for free since you let me come on your podcast. But that's my favorite thing to do is like problem solve with people. That's like why I start. And now it's getting to the point where I have so many people messaging me that I just can't do it anymore. Like I can't get to all my messages. It's impossible. And so now I've started consultations starting in January. Where people like you pay $20 and you get me for 30 minutes and I will go through any question. If you tell me in advance that you want me to do like particular kinds of research, I will do research. I will tell you like what shuttle services you can take if they have car seats available. What are the car seat laws in Mexico? Like, what do you need to know? And I will do all of that because that's my favorite part.
That's awesome. That is such a needed service.
Well, right?
I'm like, Googling
constantly. And you also have like, I have the background of having to do it so many times before that I know like the little tricks of things that you can look for. But then I also have my community. So if I'm not sure, like I have people from all over the world that are following like my from what I can tell, I think I have a very, very small percentage that are actually in St. Louis. Most people are completely spread out because it's such a, like, you could be from anywhere and you're going to be traveling with your baby. Sure. So, like, I can reach out to people. I can just, like, send a little message like, hey, anybody from Mexico City that needs to know this information? Or, like, I have somebody that needs this help. Can you do some local stuff for me? You know, like building that community only makes the resource more like stronger. And so like,
amazing.
That's
so cool.
So that's my favorite part though, is to actually like plan with people. Like, here's exactly what you're doing. And so like, let me help you do that.
I love it.
Cause it's so fun. Cause that's my favorite part. I love planning trips. That's like my favorite. Like the trip itself is fun, but the planning part of it, I'm like, I always like create my little spreadsheets and like do all this stuff. And my husband makes fun of me because he's like, another spreadsheet? Are you kidding me? Like, and I'm like, yes, we're gonna be organized. We're gonna have all of our details and our contact listed. We need it. This is how we need it. In case of emergencies.
So people can find you at traveling.
Yes, at traveling.with.babies. IES.
And that is, do you have a website too?
I do. www.travelingwithbabies.net. It's there. Yep. Pretty easy. That's the thing. It's like, what would you Google?
Yeah.
I would Google traveling with babies. That's me.
Yeah.
There I am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add from like your stories or?
I don't know. I mean, like, you get wrapped up in it and you're always like, I'm sure I missed like a million other key points, but.
Well, I do want to ask, your pain that you were having with Stella at like 8, 9s, and 10s. Like, throughout the 5-day stay. Where were you feeling that pain? Like in the incision?
Gosh, that's a great question. I'm going to say, like, postpartum amnesia. I really can barely remember. I think it was in my like uterus.
Oh.
So it was like that pain, it was like within me, and like because I don't want to say it was like the vagina because it wasn't really there.
Yeah.
The pain was, like inside, and just like
did you feel like
and the
gnawing?
incision and maybe, but like to me, I just remember it just like pain, like I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
It was just like so painful. It was like an all encompassing, like whole body shutting down pain.
Yeah.
And just like,
that's exactly what your body probably was doing.
Yeah.
Like shutting down because it didn't know how to.
yeah, I think
handle
so.
the pain.
Probably like the worst flu, but like in your uterus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it really, like with it just within your muscles and everything just hurt.
Yeah, infections are rough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
not fun. It's
What
horrible.
were they doing for your fevers while you were in labor?
I think I was just getting like, gosh, I don't even know at this point. I think they were just giving me like ibuprofen because I was taking Motrin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was just the Motrin that was just.
I'm just kind of like circling back.
Yeah.
On
I know.
I know we're like just talking about traveling with babies.
No, I
and
know.
now
It's
I'm like-
okay. No. I'm glad
Q&A.
I'm glad you're- No, this is good. This is like, that's the thing. Like it's so hard to like remember all of those details. So like, I don't even think about it until you ask. But I think because I was taking the Motrin for the C-section.
Yeah.
And so that was what was holding down my fever, because it's 600 milligrams of ibuprofen. And so my fever was going down taking that. And that was also masking the pain. Like I actually thought it was the Percocet was the main thing that was like hiding everything, but it actually was the Motrin more than the Percocet.
Makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was the Percocet's just the pain.
Yeah.
The Motrin's what's also bringing my fever down, making
Exactly.
inflammation.
Yeah.
Like,
I say the inflammation is,
yeah.
you can actually get up at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, and of course they're always like, just get up and walk around. And even with Sam, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
I
don't
worked-
tell me that.
I worked on like a postpartum wing, and like that was all like
Yeah.
that we would say is
Yeah.
like, get up and walk around.
Yeah. When my bowels weren't moving,
Yeah.
which is just actually just a thing. Like, because my mom actually told me that is a thing for her too. After the medication, like when you're trying to get your bowels like moving again, hers were really slow after her surgery. And I was like, oh, well, mine were also really slow. And I was, no offense to the nurse, my wonderful nurse that took care of me the second time, but I was like, if you tell me to get up and walk around one more time, just give me the poop medicine. Because I ended up having to, because the first time around, I ended up needing a suppository because I still hadn't pooped after like 10 days or so. It was like a week later after, it was a whole week later. That was what it was. A week later, I still hadn't pooped. And that was when I was back for the infection and everything. And they were like, we need to get it out of you. Like, and they were like, why did you even leave without having pooped? And then and this time too, they let me go. I still hadn't pooped. I asked for a suppository because of what happened the first time. I was taking laxatives and stool softeners the whole time, but I still hadn't pooped. And then I was like, can somebody just give me a suppository? Because if I leave here, like, what am I going to ask my husband to stick a pill up my butt? No. And so I was like, I need it. And she just told me to get up and walk around more. And I was like, that was my only feedback to the hospital when they called me like a couple days later. I was like, listen, you guys did a great job compared to the first time. But my only feedback is that the nurse wouldn't let me take the suppository, and I just need to poop. I still haven't pooped. I was like, I still pooped, like on the phone with them, and they were like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
So You know? That's important. That's a
Mhm.
very important milestone
Yeah.
after you give birth.
Yeah.
You gotta poop.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
poop.
You gotta do the poop, but
Take the stool softeners. And you said that you did too, which I'm like,
I was taking stool
Yeah.
softeners, I was taking the Miralax, I was doing all of it. And so what I ended up doing, it took a while. I think I still ended up taking like a week, maybe even longer. And I was like I was taking like stool softeners, I was taking Miralax and drinking the apple juice like constantly for like 3 days. And then I finally was able to like,
Oh my God.
after like 3 days of laxative stool softener.
Antibiotics will just fuck you up.
Oh, yeah.
Completely. And
Yeah.
then you're probably dehydrated.
Oh, yeah, for
And
sure. I mean,
the
that
midst of
all
all
of
of
the
that.
things, all of the things,
God.
but it
Oh
happened.
my God.
It happened eventually, but whew.
One last question.
Yes, give me all
Do
your
you remember
questions.
what the antibiotic that finally actually worked was called?
No, I was on like a cocktail of them in IV form when we were at the hospital still, and then they gave it to me, like gave me a pill. They finally got it slightly under control, and then they were like, okay, we feel comfortable enough discharging you. And that was, so they gave it to me in a pill, and it was a penicillin.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, and it was after I left in the penicillin form that I broke out knives the next day and called my doctor, and I was like, something's wrong again. I'm like, this is a joke. This has got to be a joke. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm having an allergic reaction to something. And then the nurse like called, they were like, okay, come in now, like come in right now. And I was like, and thankfully I live like 2-minute drive from my doctor. So like, I was like, I will be there. Don't even hang up the phone. I'm on my way. And so I like walk in, and like, I like took my time, cause of course trying to breastfeed, trying to pump. And so it's painful. And I took like I just had my sports bra on, and it's like red and bumpy. My whole chest.
wow.
My whole chest down to like my belly button. And that's the only part that was just swollen and red and hives everywhere.
Wild.
And she was like, I'm pretty sure you're allergic to penicillin. And I was like, good to know.
Yeah.
Interesting that you find that out at 29 years old, 28 years old.
Yeah.
However old I was at the time. I don't know. Like, just bananas. And so then this time it was in my report, like, oh, you're allergic to penicillin. Like, do you know what kind? Because then that's like, what, pain medication do we give you with the C-section? That's a whole other thing. And I was like, I don't know. I just learned this 2 days ago. Like, I didn't know that was even a thing in my life. For the longest time, I didn't think I was allergic to anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, I'm allergic to penicillins. But not all penicillins, because they gave me like, they were telling me there's another thing that they usually give you during C-sections that's closely related to penicillins. And if you're allergic to penicillin, then you're likely allergic to that. But they gave it to me the first time, and I didn't have a reaction to it. So they were like, so we're going to give it to you again. I was like, okay, well, hopefully I'm not allergic to it. And I wasn't. So like, I'm like, let's just keep it penicillin and just call it a day. We don't need to get technical. Like, the liquid version's okay and the pill version's not. We're just going to blanket. All penicillins allergic. So, right? So then they put me on, I don't know, something else. And then that ended up working, I think, like, it was on my chest, my hands, and my feet. But, like, everything else was fine. It was so weird. Yeah. And then after a couple days, that cleared up. And then just so weird.
It's a lot to go through.
It's a lot.
Wow.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that I am. We don't know if we're done for sure. I'm like I know I don't want to be pregnant for a really long time.
Take a break.
So we're definitely going to take a break. We're definitely going to take a break for sure. But we'll see if we're done but if we move back to Europe, it'll be a whole new experience because we're planning on moving back probably sometime next year. And so that means any future children we would have there, which will be, a whole new, a whole
You'll have
new
to come back
adventure.
Yeah.
That one will have to be on
We
Zoom.
need a foreign hospital
Ooh.
story.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
All right. So
okay, so I have to have now. I have to have another one. Okay, all right.
Next spreadsheet.
I guess so. Yeah. So pros and cons. Did you know Benjamin Franklin came up with the pros and cons list?
Genius boy.
So many things, electricity, pros and cons lists,
Yeah.
like.
I use them all the time.
Right? Like, really, we owe so much to Benjamin Franklin. That's a whole other podcast, though. That's a different. That's a different podcast. That's a different
drunk
podcast.
history.
I like that show. I love that show. I was a history teacher, so like, I know I have all kinds of weird, random history facts in my brain.
I love that.
Thank you.
Wow.
Right.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I know. Is it okay if you have a 2-hour-long podcast?
100%.
Yeah. We'll probably split it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm like having like this realization, like every single time that somebody shares a crazy story, I'm like, that one was the craziest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's just like, everyone is so fucking different.
Yeah.
And like, that's like why we have this. It's just
Yes.
to give everybody their own space
Yeah.
and like sharing this. And
That's
Yeah.
exactly why you created this. And I
Yeah.
love that because I think like we were talking when you first kind of like, you were like, I'm starting this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm starting this Instagram. And then they shut the Instagram down.
Twice.
so sad.
So weird.
R.I.P.
Why do that? I don't understand, but they were like,
No, that was heartbreaking.
And then
yeah.
they're like, don't even try to contact us.
They've never emailed me back.
I mean, Instagram is the worst. If something happened, like
They do not
they
give
are
a fuck.
no, they don't. They don't care.
No.
Mark Zuckerberg, like they really truly are not helpful by in any means.
Yeah.
I'm like terrified of something like happening to that. I mean, I have everything backed up and saved, but it's like it's still like I've put so much effort into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like
We kept having to be like, JK, this is our new
yeah,
Instagram.
how many times do you just be like, actually go follow this one,
And
actually go
then
follow this one?
We're just like, we're having our own.
Yeah.
We don't even
Yeah.
care.
Yeah. And so like we were talking about it and I was just like, I love hearing birthing stories because all of them are so different.
Yeah.
And like you learn so much. To me, there is no greater like indication of who a person is than to go through that experience and then how they tell that story
Yeah.
to others. I just like find it endlessly fascinating. And then to like have my own story and be able to, I find like share that with other people and then they're like, oh wait, so like that actually did happen to me and that's not normal. Like
Yeah.
maybe I've come to my own realization of my own birth story. And I just think like it's so special what you can like provide for everybody else. So yeah,
Thank you.
love that.
My Sam keeps telling me I need to like have like a mom circle and like do all of that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this is the start of it.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
start of my mom's
Yeah.
circle. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Special.
Fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again. It was great hearing all of it.
Enlightening.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked about it in a while, so it's nice to rehash some of that, rehash the drama. Why go to therapy when I can talk on a podcast?
Right? Free.
Yeah.
This
It
is
sure is.
therapy.
This is my therapy. I agree. Talking it out is therapy sometimes,
Yeah.
Like just going over it and just having someone be like, wow, that sucked. Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I love this.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I got to come over. I like that you do it like late enough at night that like I can come. Babies are sleeping.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
babies are sleeping, and
All
then
5
think
of them
so.
between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 of us.
right, and then we can do it. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we'll link your socials.
Yes.
And everything.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel free to reach out to Kelly if you want a consultation.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And
Details are on my Instagram. You know,
Yeah. Perfect.
all the details, everything you could ever want to know about me, and my Instagram. It's
Awesome.
all there.
Yeah. And if you feel so inclined, rate and review our podcast and give us a follow. And we'll just see you next week.
Yes.
Thank you.